As you can see, the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting longer, it's chilling down a little. We've had a very good time this last summer entertaining you with all the questions and answering all the information for the AMA Backyard Barbecue. And this is our final program. This is about Alberta beef, because in the end you have to finish with a strong note. The Cowboys are thanking you, and we've got one remaining question that we think we should answer for you, and that is, what is the ultimate backyard barbecue experience? And I'm sure you got an idea, but for us it's keeping it simple. It's an Alberta beef rib steak with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, a really hot fire. We are cooking local in our backyard on the barbecue, and so should you. And don't let the snow deter your efforts. That's when the real cook shine through. So enjoy the next program. We're going to take a bit of a detour on the farm to see where Alberta beef comes from. We're going to be cooking with Janice from SmellaQue. Yeah, it's a funny name. You'll learn more about that one. And then in the meantime, we're going to enjoy our rib steak. And just to show you that the Cowboys are also doing veggies, we got some sweet potatoes. We call it kumara, where we come from, and some nice green asparagus. And maybe next summer we'll tell you how to cook vegetables on the barbecue in your backyard from your local producer. If you talk about Alberta, Alberta's cattle country. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Or they say it's oil country. But I think we were cattle country long before we were oil country. And one of the big questions people always ask us is, how come is Alberta beef so good? So I'm going to throw that one at Emily. So I hope you're not a vegetarian, are you?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I'm a big beef girl. But there's a few different things that actually make Alberta perfect for raising cattle. First of all, we're really good at growing barley here, which we feed in the feedlot situations where cattle are putting on weight and getting that nice marbling in your steak that you see. So first of all, we're really good at growing barley. Second of all, we have these huge, big, vast spaces of grassland, which are perfect for grazing cattle in the early stages of life. So when they're in the cow-calf end of things. And cattle are actually really good as well for preserving these native grasslands. So we're really lucky that we ranch here in Alberta, where we're looking after the environment, but also being able to produce food for people that is really healthy and really, really delicious. So
AMA and Taste Alberta have been doing this backyard barbecue initiative to try and get people to eat more local, and obviously in this case eat more local Alberta beef. Now, one of the questions that came up there, people want to know, what is the difference between grass-fed and grain-fed beef, and should I be concerned about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, really it's about the finishing period. So in a grain-fed situation, a calf is born and it lives on its mother, and its mother eats grass or hay or forage pretty much its whole life. And that calf will also eat a predominantly forage-based diet for most of its life. And later on, it starts getting fed grain, which is higher energy, higher concentrate diet. Essentially, it helps it grow faster and create a more consistent, well-marbled product. Grass-fed is basically all the same up to towards the end of the animal's life. You know, the cow eats grass, the calf eats grass when it's younger, but then instead of eating a high concentrate, high energy grain-based diet, the calf will just eat grass all the way through. These diets take a little bit longer just because not as high energy, but it produces beef that I think is just the same. They're slightly different, but they're both very good products. It really depends on the rancher's production system, which one works best for them.
Now I'm going to make it a little more complicated, because there's some city folk out there and they threw the word out there called silage. Mm-hmm. What exactly are we talking about with silage?
Silage is what we call the forage part of the ration that cattle in feedlots are fed. It's often when we take a grain crop of some sort before it matures and before it actually becomes possible to combine and turn into grain. And we cut it and we take all the fibers and the forage from that grain crop and we put it in a big pit, cover it with plastic, and basically put it into a situation where there is no oxygen, and what causes the plants to slowly ferment. And when they ferment, it preserves the forage for longer, so it doesn't spoil, and it also creates a more nutritious and palatable feed form for cattle. So we mix that with some barley and then we throw it in the feed bunks.
Another big question people asked us online was, what breed of cattle do we actually use for Alberta beef?
These are all crossbreds, and this is a typical representation of what we've got in Alberta. Mostly a British, so an Angus or Hereford base. And then most of these would have some bit of exotic in there too, like Simmental or Charolais or Limousin, just for a little bit of added growth.
In Canada, since we don't have to use the heat-tolerant breeds, we tend to actually produce, and in Alberta specifically, we produce higher quality beef because of the breeds we can use here.
The AMA and Taste Alberta asked us to come and get a few tips and tricks and questions answered from you
Oh, are you taping?
about beef.
Yes.
What is your favorite to cook for in competitions?
My favorite to cook is easily brisket. And actually just like for run-of-the-mill weekend, we'll cook a brisket as well.
A lot of questions was about steak and also about cooking some of the larger cuts slow. What is meant with a slow cook versus a fast cook versus a sear?
Slow meats typically have a lot of connective tissue. So that's your brisket. The cuts that are closer to the front of the animal are going to be the working muscles, and so that's the one that you're going to want to cook slower. The faster meats would be the things like steak. So your sirloin caps, tenderloins, those cook a lot faster. And so they also don't need as much moisture to break down the connective tissue because they don't have as much. And steaks, usually you can just sear really fast. So hanger steaks and flat iron steaks are really good because they're thinner in nature, and so they don't need as much cooking. You can just sear it and you're good to go.
What's the best grilling steak?
The best grilling steak? So that's really up to you as the consumer. My favorite steak is a hanger steak, but I also love a good rib grilling steak. I'll eat any steak really. So
Any steak, and I think one thing we need to clarify when people ask what is the best steak is you need to sort of decide what are you going for. Are you going for texture only? Are you going for taste and flavor? Are you going for fattiness? Are you going for something that's a little more on the drier side? The point being is good to different people. Our favorite at the moment is flank steak. If I am a consumer out there and I want to be dead sure that this is not US beef, any other beef, this is good, solid Alberta beef, how do I know that?
I think by and large, pretty much all the beef that you'll see in grocery stores in Alberta is going to be Alberta beef. We have 2 of the 3 big packing plants in Canada here in Alberta, and we have something like 70% of the feeding capacity here in Alberta, so you can pretty much be guaranteed that if you're buying beef in Alberta, it's Alberta beef.
Should you be barbecuing during winter in your backyard?
of course you should.
I mean, that's a loaded question. And I think we're signing off the season. AMA and Taste Alberta has been very good with their sponsors to give us a chance to answer people's questions in the backyard about barbecuing. You've got 2 nice pieces of equipment set up here. We're going to do a bit of cooking afterwards. But the point is keep on cooking, even during winter. I think, do you practice in winter for your competitions?
We don't practice as much as we just eat barbecue all year round. I will say that I will run faster in and out of the house, but you can barbecue all year round. And I think, like, being Canadian, being Albertan, we're hardy folks, so you can definitely barbecue all year round.
Keep cooking on the backyard and cook local. Find the local produce.
That's right, yeah. There's lots of great farms and they need your support, so this is a great time to experiment and explore Alberta.